Welcome to round 4 of the Star Wars Destiny Store Championship at Mayhem Comics and Games in Des Moines, Iowa. I'm Grandpa Jake, and for this round 4 matchup, we've got me on the right again, playing my Ahsoka eMaz Gungan deck. And on the left, we've got Chris playing his ePlo Koon double Outer Rim Smuggler deck. We'd actually played this matchup a couple days before. We both had made some tweaks to our deck since then, but we were kind of familiar with each other's decks and kind of got what was going on. Chris is trying to play out all the cards in his hand to get that 4 resources from the Smuggler, and then the Plo ability, so that he can build up into big cards next round, play lots of good upgrades. And he's playing things like Don't Get Cocky, so that his last card draws him cards so that he can potentially spend that money right away. And then I'm playing the Ahsoka eMaz Gungan deck, which is actually a vehicle deck, as you can see from my battlefield there. And the goal there is to get down a big vehicle and Natural Pilot on Ahsoka. And then, since Natural Pilot can ready a vehicle when you activate the attached character, and Ahsoka can ready herself with her ability the first time you attach, you can actually use that Natural Pilot twice and potentially resolve one of your big vehicles 3 times in a round, which, when it's something like a U-Wing that is dealing 6 damage, every time you resolve it, things can get pretty crazy. And what's great in the most recent Way of the Force set is we have Respected Businessman, which gets you a resource every time you activate the attached character, and since you're activating Ahsoka twice around, you're getting 2 resources around, and you really just make a lot of money. So Chris will win the roll-off here, and he's trying to decide between his docking bay, which helps you play vehicles a little bit cheaper, and my Weapons Factory Alpha, which makes my vehicles cheaper when I have it. And he opts to give me the shields and take his docking bay, because docking bay helps him, since a lot of times he's discarding cards out of his hand to re-roll, even maybe suboptimally sometimes in terms of the number of dice he's re-rolling, because he wants to get down to be able to play his last card. He'll put things in his discard pile that he can then docking bay back out. So I'll drop a chance cube on Maz, which is basically my ideal start in terms of money, because those Maz focus sides make that chance cube so consistent. So he'll play Friends in Low Places and see that he gets a caution from me, which I like to see caution early, but then he's staring down a Y-Wing, a U-Wing, and a Natural Pilot, seeing that the Natural Pilot is that reset card, and those big vehicles are other things I want to get out. But at this point, I don't have the money I need just yet. But I'll activate Maz and hopefully get that money for myself. And I don't hit the money side on the cube, but I hit the focus on Maz and quickly activate, giving myself a +2 resources for the action. So now he's working out how to make the money to be able to play one of those cards in his hand as his last thing. So he'll roll out Plo, which Plo has a resource side and a focus side, so he can really help you fix into that money to start the game. And I'll roll out Gungan, which just rolls money naturally for me. And since I'm sitting on 4 resources and the Gungan's going to get me my 5th, I'll be able to play down a U-Wing to start the game, which is exactly what I want to do. So he's taking a look at the characters to see kind of what they're going to do together. He sees all that money and the fact that I'll be able to pay to activate Ahsoka, but I'm more focused on playing down that U-Wing or maybe the Natural Pilot in my hand. And obviously I prefer the U-Wing because the Natural Pilot is really just there to turn the U-Wing on more times. So if I'm playing something first, I want to go with the U-Wing. Maybe I'll even get the 2 resources and be able to continue ramping. So he's got all his dice out and a couple cards in hand that are relatively expensive. So he's got to pick which one he doesn't want to try to pay for, and try to roll into more money so he can pay for one, maybe play down his last card. and get lots of resources for going into next round. So he'll resolve a focus on Plo, and instead of focusing on the money, because 3 money is a lot to get to pay for some of those big cards, and you might not want to discard them, he'll instead go for damage. Because if you can get down one of these characters fast, you can kind of slow down the combos on my side. So now he's trying to figure out, I have this 1 cost Streetwise in my hand, and I'll be able to pay to do that. Or I have this big a couple of these 3 cost cards, and you can't really afford to resolve those when you don't have a lot of money sides showing. So instead, he'll just deal 4 damage to Ahsoka. And Ahsoka's, if you have 2 target choices, really, Maz or Ahsoka. Ahsoka's got a little bit more health, so it takes a little more to get through her. But she also is the combo. I'm not putting a natural pilot on Maz in this deck because it's Ahsoka's reset that really makes that natural pilot so great. So if you kill Ahsoka before I get that combo going, you can get ahead. So now I think he's asking if he uses the docking bay to play the last card from his hand, does he still get the ability from the Outer Rim Smugglers and Plo? And the answer to that is yes, because you're playing, if after you play the last card in your hand for the first time with the Outer Rim Smugglers, and docking bay says play a support from your hand or discard pile, decreasing the cost by 1. So he's just going to discard for 0. Or discard to reroll 0. And I'm going to resolve a special on the U-Wing, but as opposed to dealing damage, I'm actually going to do shields. Since he already put down 5 damage, I'd rather have a couple shields on Ahsoka, and it's still 6 or 6, so it doesn't really feel bad as long as I'm getting to put 2 shields on everybody. So he discarded to reroll 0 just then, but now the trick is he's probably not going to be able to claim, and he doesn't have a resource if he waits, because if he discards again, I'm probably just claiming. So instead, he just chooses to claim, playing that Streetwise for free. He doesn't get the ability from the Outer Rim Smuggler, but he knows what's in my hand, a Y-Wing and a natural pilot. I'm probably not discarding either of those to reroll 1 die. So he can claim, get that down, not get the ability, but have tempo and been able to play it for free. And the Streetwise really helps you be able to afford that last card in your hand, because it reduces the cost of a yellow event. So sometimes you have those big 3 cost events in here, and being able to afford those at the end of the round is tough to get up to 3, but if you don't spend any money on upgrades, or if you make a couple bucks along the way, you can pay for it with the Streetwise. Or if you just have a 1 cost event that you need to play at the end, being able to play that for free and then get into more money is really helpful. So he'll play another Shoto on Plo, so now both those Shotos are turned on, and he'll be gaining 2 shields or stripping 2 shields off me. I get to see my respected businessman, which I'm very excited to see, because that's kind of part of the combo with Ahsoka. It pays for itself right away, and then once you have the natural pilot down, it makes it so that you can afford to ready that die. He'll activate Plo and strip the shields off Ahsoka. Ahsoka's only got 6 health left, so I'm kind of in a rush to use her. So I'll activate her, gain the $1 with the respective businessman, and then ready her with her ability with that $1. And so he's seeing this ready Ahsoka that will gain me $1 again, and he's got a Vandalize in hand. And he's got 2 character dice out. And he's obviously never going to be able to vandalize the U-Wing. He doesn't have 5 character dice. So he might, be able to vandalize something like a crate or a Y-Wing if he's patient with it. Or if all his characters survive, he can maybe vandalize a natural pilot. But really, the best target he's got for vandalize, if he wants to use it, is that respected businessman, because he's turning off an econ engine for me. It didn't cost him anything to do it. resource-wise, but he had to use those 2 character dice. So he'll take that respected businessman away. So the second time I activate Ahsoka this round, I won't gain $1. So really that thing just cost me 1 resource. So it's like he turned one of those Plo dice into a disrupt and then the other one to the die that took it off the board. But I've got the U-Wing special, so I'll pump out 6 damage. And if I can figure out a way to sneak my way to 4 resources here, I'll be able to play that natural pilot down. And rolling out another blank isn't a great way to start out, but there's still Maz. They're still discarding to re-roll if necessary. He'll resolve 3 resources, so now he can play some of those expensive cards in his hand as the last card and get himself even more money. And I'll discard to reroll, really hoping for a resource so that I can pay for that chance cube. And it looks like Ahsoka got me the resource I needed. And obviously, I'd speed up a lot faster to 4 resources if I had that respected businessman on Ahsoka. So him taking that away was pretty rough. But he will pay 3 to play down that Vibro Sword onto his Outer Rim Smuggler, and then discard to reroll. So he's only got 1 card left in hand. I'll activate Maz, trying to get some more money out here. And I actually roll the natural 3 on the chance cube and a 1 on Maz, so I get 4 money and I'm able to play that natural pilot. He plays Don't Get Cocky, accidentally gets out 5 cards instead of 2, but that Don't Get Cocky gets him 4 money from all those abilities, and he has 2 cards to be able to play again. Now they eroded Outer Rim Smuggler so that it wouldn't go off multiple times, but he will at least be able to afford those cards in his hand now. So instead of playing the natural pilot, I actually opt for an R2-D2 because the R2-D2 special side, there's 2 of them, and he's also got a resource. So either he'll pay for himself and I'll still be able to play the natural pilot, or the special will go off, focus something to a resource, and then I'll be able to draw a card in addition. Any of those outcomes is good for me on my way to getting that 4th resource for the natural pilot. And he'll Scruffy away my last vehicle in hand before playing down that Ray's Saber, getting him a shield. And I'll discard the Garbage Chute because it's not really active this round, and I probably just want to be emptying my hand for more vehicles. And so I'm shooting for things like damage and resources, or a focus, well, special on that R2-D2. And I get a focus on Maz, so I focus R2-D2 to a resource. He decided to claim, so because he didn't have anything left in hand, so I'm just playing things out, getting that 4th resource to play the natural pilot, activating Ahsoka the second time this round, which allows me to activate the U-Wing and roll out both those dice again. So the natural pilot rolled a modified damage, and the U-Wing rolled a base side, which is basically as good as it gets when I can kill a character with that. So I'm looking at, do I want to kill one of his Outer Rim Smugglers, or do I want to try to focus on this Plo Koon? And I decided to chase after Plo Koon because he's got both those Shotos on him, and while he can decide to add shields with the Shotos, if I'm pressuring him to do that by putting damage down, that means he's not taking shields off Maz or the Gungan, so I'm happy with that. So now I resolve a couple indirect with the Gungan, and he puts that over on his outer rim smuggler that has a redeploy weapon, which makes sense because then you might be able to get that redeploy weapon off twice more easily next round. And we move on to the next round. So at this point, I kind of caught up and took a lead in the damage race. I've got 11 damage down, and he's got no shields. And he's got 5 damage down, and I've got 6 shields. And with the natural pilot U-Wing combo out, I'm feeling pretty strong. But he can always roll out a ton of melee damage and catch right back up. And he's got lots of cheap cards in his hand, so he should be able to get that ability off again. Looks like even another Don't Get Cocky, so he can get the ability and draw a couple cards to play them. So he'll start by rolling out with that redeploy weapon, because if I deal indirect or damage across the board and that character goes down, he wants to be able to resolve that redeploy weapon die twice if possible. And he's just fine seeing a blank on that character die because he's got a caution in hand, and turning that into 3 shields is very helpful here. Because he's a little bit behind, I think, well, that 3 shields is good on the Plo Koon. It might mean he has to wait a bit on the Shoto's lights, or on activating Plo Koon, because he wants to give those shields with the Shoto. But he decides to activate a little early, and instead rip shields one off Ahsoka and one off Maz, which isn't too bad if he's trying to just race down that Ahsoka before I can activate her twice. And he rolls out a good chunk of damage there, so I do have to kind of think about what I want to do in terms of maximizing that Ahsoka value. And I don't have any money to pay for a removal, so I will resolve resource sides while I can. And the goal there is to just get that U-Wing die resolved so that I can activate it again and then activate Ahsoka and ready the U-Wing. And so he's looking at what damage to deal quickly here, or if he wants to try to reroll into more modified sides on those Shoto lightsabers. And he's still got plenty of cards to get through in his hand before getting any sort of abilities off with the smugglers, so discarding to reroll here to kind of speed up that process isn't a bad move. The only fear is he knows I have at least a pin down in my hand, so he knows there's some removal waiting for him, and I just got money to pay for it. But if he rolls a bunch of damage sides, I can only remove one of them, so chasing those modifieds to try to get the kill on Ahsoka might not be a bad plan. And he still doesn't roll out lethal, so I've got a little bit of time to get that U-Wing activated again. And then now, even if he can threaten lethal after this next action, I can just activate Ahsoka to get the U-Wing activated one more time. And I'm rolling out the special, so we're looking at 2 damage on all of his characters, or 2 shields on mine. And since I've got a couple characters on 2 shields, I'm probably not resolving for 4 shields when I can resolve for 6 damage. So then he faces the ultimate decision. How do I get rid of a U-Wing? If I have the hidden motive, do I do it? And in the past, I had someone hidden motive the U-Wing and call special, and it rolled damage. This time he called damage and it rolled a special. So I just get that 6 damage off again. Now he's trying to chase a little bit of damage, so as opposed to waiting for that redeploy to potentially go back. Especially since that other smuggler might just get killed before he can use the redeploy anyways. I roll out the R2-D2 special so I can draw a card and change a die to any side. So he'll opt to discard to reroll instead of playing that Friends in Low Places. And he knows I have one piece of removal in hand, but he doesn't know if there's much more. I've got actually plenty of removal that I'm kind of trying to conserve for if he has lethal, because I feel pretty far ahead at this point, and so I don't want to use the removal real quickly and then go into next round and have him roll out something crazy. So I'm trying to be patient with it. I'll activate Ahsoka here. I don't get to roll out the natural pilot again, because I think I'm fearing potential lethal on Ahsoka soon, but I want to be able to reactivate that U-Wing. So I think he's actually got lethal on Ahsoka here, and if I remember correctly, he had lethal +2. Yeah, so he kills Ahsoka and deals 2 to Maz. So none of my single die removal was really going to save Ahsoka there, so I decided to conserve that removal for potential lethal combos or potential 3 sides or something like that in the future. And I'll roll out the U-Wing and get myself another special, which is just super strong because it'll be able to kill one of the Outer Rim Smugglers, put Plo on 2 health, put the other Outer Rim Smuggler on 2 health. So he quickly plays his Don't Get Cocky. So he gets, since all 3 characters are still alive, he gets himself 4 resources and 2 cards. But even if he draws into removal there, I get to resolve that special first. So he's got 2 characters left on 2 health. And while I won't get to activate the U-Wing again this round, I will have 16 health going into next round, and plenty of single die removal to make sure that he just doesn't have enough total damage sides on his dice to be able to kill me. So he's got a scoping the target without a lot of great targets to use. And a Dagger of Mortis to play down. And he's got plenty of money, so he can play both. I don't have a blue character left anymore for the Dagger ability, but just more big melee sides are what he needs to be able to potentially win next round. I'll play the Maz's Goggles on Maz, basically guaranteeing that I'm going to be able to focus that chance cube and maybe potentially take an event out of his hand with the special. I'll take another resource. That was probably ill-advised because now I can't pay for the chance cube. But I do have a Y-Wing out. Then I make another ill-advised move, rolling out Maz before rolling out the Y-Wing, because I'd rather roll out Maz and focus the Y-Wing. But instead, so instead what I decide to do is I can resolve 2 dice, so if I focus the Maz's Goggles to a special, I can take away whatever in his hand if it's an event. So now, hopefully, there's a focus showing on one of those Maz dice, and I've got the Y-Wing special to resolve for 4 damage. And he's only got 4 health left, but he also has 3 resources now up to 4, so the special can't kill him. So I'm looking at, is there any way I can kill him? Is there something weird I can do? But I don't think I can, so I think what I'm thinking over as well is, do I want to focus to the special, or focus to a 2-side and kill one of his characters. And I decided to focus to the special. In hindsight, probably should have killed Plo Koon. But focusing to the special takes away all his money. And so if he had any big removal pieces in his hand, I kind of wanted to get rid of those. But since he's got stuff like the Streetwise down and he's getting 2 resources anyways, I'm probably not turning off any big removal by taking away all those resources. So I probably should have just taken a character off the board. But I'm pretty far ahead still with 16 health still on the board and a Force Illusion. So the misplay doesn't hurt too bad. And he'll start by rolling ePlo, which will let him get 2 shields out there. So I can't just roll in the U-Wing and kill him. And I think he does not roll out lethal on Maz with that rollout. So I'm not too worried about instantly playing a removal. I might be able to do some other stuff. But I have so much removal in my hand that at this point, this is probably the round where I want to just start playing it to minimize his max damage for the round. So I'll do something like take a big die, like the Ray Saber off there with a pin down. Now he mulls over his options. And he was going to play a Never Tell Me the Odds, but I remind him that it's yellow character only, so it takes that back. And so now the question is, does he want to try to be able to play that by rolling out his Smuggler, which is probably a good option. Because even if he never tell me the odds on those 3 dice, that's still he can go up to, I think, 4 damage. If he has a resource showing so he can pay the modified, he could get 6 damage on the upgrade dice and 2 on the Smuggler. And that would actually put him potentially in range of winning this round if he can somehow get rid of that Force Illusion, which is probably the only other good vandalized target in my deck. At least later on in the game. Early you want to hit a Chance Cube or maybe a eMaz's Goggles. So he will do the Never Tell Me the Odds to get those things to as much... Or no, instead he plays a Negotiate. So he can play a Negotiate for free, removes 1 die, and makes me remove that U-Wing die. Which is helpful because I don't really have anything to activate the U-Wing again. But I can roll in Maz. And resolve the Maz's Goggles special. Take away any problem events in his hand. And I decided to take away the odds. He'd have to spend a resource. It's not really going to do him a whole lot. But I guess I probably should have taken the caution to try to shorten the game up. But I guess I was maybe thinking, if I take the caution and he plays the odds and can kill a character this round, I don't exactly have a lot of damage to finish the game this round left, so... So he discards to reroll. He's trying to up how much max damage he can do this round. Maybe get up to 9 to kill a Maz. And he's looking at what can I do to slow that game plan down? And I've got one resource and a bunch of cards in hand. And I played the pin down that he knew I had because I tried to play it but didn't have a resource earlier. So he doesn't know what resource or what removal I might have left in hand, but he knows that if you can roll a couple more damage, you can kill Maz, so he's going to chase that. I roll out the Y-Wing and get a special. Or maybe, no, I get a 2 ranged, perhaps, to be able to kill that, to be able to kill the smuggler. And it looks like it's the special I'm resolving, so he's trying to figure out what sort of spread do I want to do here. I've got a couple shields, I got a couple resources. Do I need to be able to spend these resources? And it looks like he wants to be able to spend 1. So he'll save himself 1 resource. Looks like that's an illusion in hand, so that's a good thing to save a resource for, especially going into next round. And he doesn't have to kill anyone because he's got 2 health, 2 shields, 2 health. So he'll deal 2 on the shields. And 1 to Plo Koon. So he's got 1 health left on Plo, 2 health left on the Outer Rim Smuggler, and an illusion in hand. So he's got a little bit of health left. He's surviving in the next round because I only have 2 dice left out there. So now he's resolving melee. And I think he obviously doesn't really care about the Gungan die, so he's going to be focusing on Maz here. And I think he was deciding if he wanted to pay to resolve so that he wouldn't have a resource for his Force Illusion or not. But he had the 9 damage to kill Maz, so he obviously was going to pay for that. And that leaves me with just the Gungan, but I've got R2-D2. I've got a U-Wing, and I've got a Y-Wing next round. And the Gungan has 2 shields, 6 health, and a Force Illusion. So I feel pretty good, especially with plenty of removal in hand. So now he's going to play down the Force Illusion to make sure that he can stay alive, potentially. And he's trying to decide what he wants to overwrite to be able to play it, because he can't claim to do it. And so he's got to figure out who he wants to play it on and what he wants to overwrite. So now we're talking out. He's asking about the rule on how the Force Illusion works with the lower health. So I'm explaining that Force Illusion can only block as much health as on a character if I'm resolving something like an indirect, which I have on the Gungan. And so he decides to put it on the Smuggler because the Smuggler has 2 health left. And I play down a C-3PO. Not really going to do much for me this round, but it might be able to turn on the R2-D2 focus. And I think in theory I'm attempting to chase lethal here, or at least chase a kill on chase a kill on Plo without... I'm not sure. I think I'm trying to make two of the sides hit what I want. Oh, perhaps I'm chasing the 2 side on the Gungan in addition to a special on R2-D2. And I'm so far ahead that I don't really need all that removal. Because I know at the very least I can kill Plo Koon this round because I've got C-3PO and R2-D2. So now I focus to the 2 indirect, and we're talking over how he can use Force Illusion to block damage. Oh, and the Smuggler's actually got 7 health. Okay, so the Smuggler only has 1 health left. So it really... He's able to block the 1, but then he has to deal the other to Plo Koon. So now he's just got this Smuggler with 1 health. And we're going in the next round, and I just have to roll out, any sort of damage. So he's searching his discard to see if there's anything that he could have... Since he claimed, we're just making sure he didn't miss anything with the docking bay, but he didn't have any resources, so there was nothing he could afford in there. So he'll roll out. I don't think he can deal damage. Well, I guess if I don't have enough cards in my deck and he can deal 8 or more in one swing, then he's good, but I've got a garbage chute, so I take away half of his dice right off the bat. So at this point, I can't lose this round. And even if he's got all the removal in the world, I should be able to just resolve one of these dice for damage to win. So he'll play down another Streetwise. I roll in the U-Wing. And he plays an Electroshock to get rid of it, so I roll out the Y-Wing. It's a blank. And now he doesn't have the 3 resources he needs to play that other removal card in his hand. So he can discard to reroll here, but since I can just roll out the 3PO... Oh, but I decided to go with... I should have gotten the 3PO there because I could just 3PO the Y-Wing. But I think maybe I was playing around... Yeah, I was playing around easy pickings because the 3PO has 2 blanks and the Y-Wing was already showing a blank. I didn't really want to roll out the 3PO and roll into an easy pickings, especially when he was sitting on that 1 resource and a Streetwise, so he could pay for it. So instead I discard to reroll those 2, hoping to get off of the blank. And ideally dodging something like a resource, which 3PO has a couple of. So I roll out 3PO and hit the blank, which is good because I'm not showing any. And since he doesn't have any removal and only 1 health left, I can 3PO the one side showing on R2-D2 to deal 1 damage for the game. So he's looking at his options. He's got oh, he does. Okay, so he's got a 2-cost removal in his hand. So he removes one of his character dice to resolve one of my dice, but I kind of rolled the perfect combination where that wouldn't work because I rolled a 1 side on R2-D2. I rolled a non-blank on Y-wing, and I rolled a blank on C-3PO. So he can't resolve my 3PO die because it's on a blank. So he could resolve one of the other 2 dice, but then I just 3PO the die he doesn't resolve, and I kill him for the game. And that is the end. Pulled out a close game. The Gungan was pretty protected, but otherwise it was a pretty close game for round 4 of the Star Wars Destiny Store Championship at Mayhem Comics and Games. I've been Grandpa Jake. Thanks for watching.